She's not listening to me.
I am now. Just have fun with it. Literally. Like, don't overthink it, because then it's not a conversation. Then it's an interview.
Yeah.
The Cartier conversation. You?
That's really to say.
Rapelang, let me start with you, since you joined us first. I want to know what's been most surprising about your success.
What's been most surprising about my success? I suppose it's been really surprising because when I first started deciding to be an entrepreneur, it was really because I just wanted to create a space where I could do the things that I thought were important, spend time thinking about things that I thought were important, and avoid having to do things that, you know, the adults or my parents or the system told me to do. And it was more sort of a desperate plea to get out of the way the system worked. And I was just so surprised that that ended up being a success, because as far as I was concerned, I was avoiding the system and the proven way to success. And that surprised me a heck of a lot, that being able to follow those little inner voices at 21 has actually made all the difference. I wouldn't have expected that.
So what role has media had for you?
Yeah, it's actually very interesting. Like, I studied electrical engineer, and suddenly I became a writer. Like, such a crazy story. But the truth is, the world is so open and connected. It's a total different game to get attention. And whenever you offer people something they want, people can become your media. Let me explain this a little bit better. How did I become a writer? I said, instead of doing a blog, I will write 20 stories and I'll put them together in a free ebook. You know, I never had the ambition of publishing a book, selling a book. I want people to read the content, learn, and grow, right? And as a good engineer, I decided to do it through a website. So here's the connection to the electrical engineer part. But in any case, when I launched it, and it was for free, and it was like a full book, good quality, it went viral on the internet in Brazil. So like 100,000 people downloaded in the first week. And it's interesting for you to ask the media piece, because I had no media aligned for this, right? It was just the word of mouth. I was living in the US, I launched it in Brazil. So this is really interesting. So my media are my readers and my people, like the people who like what they read. So it's really, really interesting. My biggest media is social media. And a lot of the things I do, I have a very big part of it, which is launched for free. And then they become real advocates of their work. Not just because it's free, but it's because something free that adds value to something they need in their life at the time. So it's interesting, and it's very enormous, the power of this. Like, my books have had over 3 million downloads, but it's interesting because once social media takes up, normal media finds you because they need stories. So I had this other side. When social media appeared and became bigger, then traditional media came. And like right now, I use a lot of things in traditional media. I have a daily show on radio. I have a weekly segment on TV. I have monthly articles both on newspapers and magazines. But what drove me to that was social media.
Yes, I think it is important to raise awareness, especially if you're dealing with a topic or a field that is very complicated. And because we are doing artificial organs, which is for some people it's science fiction, and it's very difficult to even absorb the concept of what it could be like to have a therapeutic pathway with an innovative tool. For us, raising awareness through media and talking about this subject was very important and very influential in the field as a whole. And this is why for us, being in competitions where I've been with Bell and you and building a strong network where it is contributing towards the conditioning, the thinking of people about innovative technologies, it was truly important. And for me, this success is not just because you're connected with the powerful people, but also with the powerless. The people that could be affected with your problem, not because they are the game changers and they are also, for example, for me in healthcare, but also with the people that are in third world countries, and they have the side effect of the problem. For example, illegal organ trading. So definitely it is important to speak out and take position and make sure that you're heard.
Rapelang, I want to move on to you. What is fame to you?
Fame, shoo, it's something I actually never ever think about. So even though I've been on the cover of Forbes Africa, I've never ever woken up in the morning and thought I'm famous, or anything like that. I suppose I appreciate the fact that I've got a really good brand, and over the years it's become really important to see how much value that brings. So and a really good way to understand it is that as an individual person, you can meet lots and lots of people in the course of a year, but you will only ever meet so many people. But when you have a brand that sort of pulls people to you, then you end up being connected with people that you would have never ever normally crossed. And those opportunities and conversations have been quite remarkable. And even as I'm starting a new business now and people are reaching out to me that wouldn't have reached out to me before if I hadn't had a brand. So I think of it as a really effective way for people to find you. And for that, it's valuable. But I've never put the word fame in my head. I'll just refer to it as a personal brand as such. Sure.
Did you ever feel a sense of pressure being in the media and being this well-known figure? Did you feel pressure to have to do it even better than before?
There's certainly a whole lot more pressure, and it's unfortunate because even if you have a first business experience, it's still very hard doing another business. You still have to prove an idea, you still have to prove a market. But luckily, I've never sort of taken the big attention or media to heart. Like I said, when I wake up in the morning, I've forgotten all of that has ever happened. And I'm looking at the challenges that I've got to get through today. And it doesn't cross my mind until someone mentions it to me. I'm like, oh yeah, I did do that. And I've always just kept my eyes on sort of the goal of this is what I'm trying to do. All of those things are ultimately history. And what matters is what I'm trying to do now. And it's more success on sort of my terms. What other people ultimately think isn't the final determinant. So whether I fail today or succeed today, it's more important that I'm happy with myself and my effort and contribution that I'm trying to make. So I suppose I use it, I appreciate it, but I always separate it from what's really, really important in life.
Okay, thank you. You spoke a lot about the people you meet along the way and how it's been surprising. Everyone talks about the value of networking. Chi, I know you in that whole networking space as well. You're part of organizing the Anzisha Prize, and Rapelang as well. You've been part of the Global Shapers. So being on that side of the spectrum, what is the kind of effectiveness of these networking opportunities for entrepreneurs?
Oh, absolutely. So well, as I look at it, so essentially success. There are two parts to success. It's knowledge and action and your network, right? And personally, I've felt the net effect of having a wide and diverse network of people that you can just reach out to. And my life's goal is to essentially sort of kind of create or enable people to be able to tap into different networks, especially young African entrepreneurs who are just exceptional, that may not be able to, because, you know, when you go to these schools like Ivy Leagues or you work at certain companies, what you're paying for, right, or the value add is the network, right? And so the problem that I'm trying to solve is how do you expand this network so that it includes people that don't necessarily go through those channels, but should be part of it, that are just exceptional in what they do and their passion and their drive. And so essentially, that's what I tried to do. So with the Anzisha Prize, it was not my brainchild. It's the brainchild of African Leadership Academy and Fred Swanaker and Chris Bradford specifically. But I've been very blessed to be able to dedicate the past 3 years to being able to find young African entrepreneurs and kind of create a network of these young African entrepreneurs and enable them to sort of like tap into each other and use each other as resources. And I've since moved on, so I've left ALA to develop my startup. I have 2 startups. Well, one is called Diaspreneur, and my goal is to actually expand the network so that it includes African entrepreneurs on the continent and African entrepreneurs of the diaspora, like myself. And I essentially want to create like the biggest, I want to create the largest index and database of African entrepreneurs in the world. And that will include native African entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs of the diaspora. Because I think we all need to be having these conversations with each other and connecting and collaborating.
Yes, and you've done an absolutely fantastic job with South Africa. Well done. With that Disha Prize. And Val and Eleni, I met you in Paris last year at the Cartier Women's Initiative Awards, which was a prime networking opportunity. I'm curious to know how this opportunity affected you and what kind of doors opened for you following the event in Paris.
It was definitely beneficial and inspiring opportunity because I didn't have the chance a lot the past few years to meet women from across disciplines and meet people like you and Belle from Brazil that is creating a whole revolution in her country with her ideas. And, you know, optimism for me is a very big deal. And I think it's great to see women that, you know, take the forefront and try to claim more things for them. That is extremely inspiring for me. And I think another important thing about the Cartier Awards is that it's creating a social model where it provides an economic agenda that can steer and can spark innovation without controlling it, and encourage regional innovation, and that clusters startup components, and in this way we can flourish our startups, and also it pollinates new ideas. And the network that Cartier has is very important for people across disciplines because it also, you know, it has this communication, has a discussion with the public as well through the Women's Forum, which is a great portal as well for us. So definitely that has really helped me, and I'm very glad I had the opportunity. And of course, being a laureate is also an honor for me, personally. I think Belle can say more.
Belle, do you have anything to add there?
Yeah, I was amazed, you know, with the experience we had there. And there were some things that really caught my attention. First, that it was really across all sectors. And this goes back to some points that were said before about how do we bring to our network people who are not necessarily on the same track as we are. This is very, very valuable for our lives. I'm not talking about business opportunities. I'm talking about learning things to your life that open your horizons and your ways to seeing what is out there. So this was very cool to me. Second, it is really interesting to feel like all of us work on things that may be growing in our countries or in our environments, but we know there is much more until it becomes totally global, right? And having Cartier, a company that has a global vision, come to us and say, hey, your local businesses may change the whole world. It's really cool because we believe in this. We're crazy ones, right? But it's really cool to see this validation from a more traditional, bigger type of company, right? This is two. And then the third thing is, even though it's called an award or a competition, for me it was very valuable to see that the networking and connections are much bigger than the competition itself. So like they did cool things like Eleni and I and other people, they split us in rooms, and then we get to present to each other before we present into the jury. And you get to give advice to each other. This is really cool. You know, you're supposedly competing against these people, but you're not really. You can learn from all of them. And I think this is very rich. I mean, when I got my award, I told them this is for all the finalists. Like, it's not my award, it's everyone's. And so I learned a hell of a lot there.
Great. Thank you, Bo. I just want to take a moment to invite Raelene to the conversation.
Hi.
Thank you for joining us. Hi. Thank you for joining us. I day I was reading this article about what it's like to date an entrepreneur. And it said dating an entrepreneur is like dating an alien species because we just have such a different mindset and outlook on life. And as a young entrepreneur myself, I know how difficult it is to balance dating and social life and friends and family and business and travel. So I'm curious to know, Raelene, let's start with you. How do you manage the dynamics of dating as an entrepreneur?
I think the alignment of energy is really, really important. And you're right, the entrepreneurial energy and spirit and just not keeping the same hours can take a toll on, trying to fit it into a traditional relationship. So I think you need is dating someone with the aligned energy, but also complementary sort of characteristics. Because if you're quite a big thinker, you also need a reality check kind of person as well. Who will deal the analytics. But I want to say it's like an energy thing that once that is okay, then you can sort of deal with any other differences. But they must get you. They must get you. And I'm fortunate to be in that kind of situation, and it makes a hell of a difference.
Okay, so you are in a relationship and you manage to balance it out. I'm personally not in one. I feel like I haven't had the time, but I'm only 24. I'm sure that time will come. Okay, and Rapelang, how do you manage the dynamics of dating? I'm not sure your relationship.
I really don't think I've figured it out at all. So, because I'm still single, I think I understand what Raelene was saying about the energy, and I'll also add, I think it's really important to have the same sort of mindset. I think it requires a common belief that the world can be influenced and changed, because I find if my partner doesn't really believe that, it's very hard to have meaningful conversations. And I'm mainly a dinner person, so if we can't speak on those levels, it becomes very hard to sort of sustain a relationship, I think. I often sort of, at the beginning of a startup though, I'm pretty clear in my head that there won't be time in the next 18 months for a relationship, and then maybe I'll have some more time afterwards. But it's pretty rough at the very, very beginning. And I suppose I kind of make a decision that there isn't a work-life balance right now and for this time frame, and I will shift that later on. So I don't put myself under all this pressure of trying to do everything at the same time. I think there's cycles when you've got time and capacity for different things.
Has anyone ever been told to quit or had moments? I mean, we all go through ups and downs as an entrepreneur. Have you ever felt a moment of wanting to quit? And can you describe that moment? Anyone can. I'm not directing this question at Rapelang, so whoever wants me to do.
I think I can't zone into a moment. I'm sure there's plenty of them. But a specific line that you hear sometimes as an entrepreneur, especially at the beginning stages, I don't get what you do. Do you know those beginning stages when you're figuring out what the product is or the concept of the value offering is probably the richest, most refining, most hardest times, because you're struggling to articulate the value of what this thing does in a way that is meaningful and really succinct for the next person. And sometimes when that goes on for a while, you kind of go, do I even know what I'm doing? I mean, because it all starts with the feeling, and you know what it's supposed to do and what it can do. But those moments of trying to articulate it in a really easy way, but still powerful for the next person, may build up to a point where you go, oh, you start doubting yourself. Does this thing even make sense? And I can say I've had plenty of those before trying to determine, the value offering. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And Valenci, both of you have worked at Google once upon a time, and amongst other big corporates, and we've had that stability and, reliable income coming in. And both of you made the decision to leave all of that. I know, Belle, people thought you were crazy for giving up all your opportunities in Silicon Valley. Did you ever feel like maybe you had made a mistake?
I think there is a question of entrepreneurship, which is, people sometimes think it's glamorous. So I think the danger is in not telling people what being an entrepreneur is really about, right? So people sometimes think, oh, it's so cool, I don't have a boss. Okay, you have clients. It's much harder than having a boss, right? or you don't have clients, and then it's much worse. You need to get clients. Or people say, I can make my own schedule. Yes, it's gonna be 24/7, right? So I think people are getting the idea a little bit wrong because they see, I don't know, Instagram story and even Instagram story. Before it was Instagram, there was Bourbon, there was things that didn't work, but people only tell the stories through the lenses of success, and this is really dangerous because what happens is people jump themselves into an entrepreneurship dream without really seeing what the risks are, and there are risks. But why didn't I look back at all when I said, hey, I want to live this life and I want to be an entrepreneur? Because my risks were calculated, right? And so my parents were freaking out, and I'm like, Mom, like I even made a deal that if in 6 months I don't like the startup I'm at, I can go back, right? You take the steps you need to take in order to do it. And even before, I was running my company since I was 18. And I was working on companies until I was 23, because for 5 years I needed to do that in order to survive, to have money. So you need to do it in a way that is sustainable for you at the moment you're living. And I think sometimes when the stories are just people get into it and they get sad because it's not like that.
Thank you, Val. If you reflect back on your entrepreneurial journey, what has been your proudest moment? And can you describe that moment?
The proudest moment, I think every small discovery in the lab is a proud moment because you mostly experience failure. Every single day, nothing works until one day something is going to work, and it will, it validates your whole life before that. So for me, it has been a hard journey, but the motivation behind it is when you see the impact to real people. And this is the reason why I'm devoted to volunteering a lot, because I like to see what this solution that I'm trying to provide the world will change. How will this impact the world? And especially in places where the most brutal forms of violence happen. And for us, going to Latin America and going to Africa in places where there have been illegal organ trading, and it has got to a point where even prisoners, for example, in China, are giving away their organs so that they can diminish their time in jail. That has gone to a point where it's complete, it is desperation. And when people are losing hope to that extent, there has to be a way to change it. And for me, that is the proudest moment, is when I realized that we have a small contribution towards that way. And I'm always searching back to these moments and these memories for guidance about how to tackle new challenges in my life every day. And as all the girls said, entrepreneurship is this battle between insane optimism that you can tackle a very important problem that is impossible till today, and sane skepticism of how can I do it myself. You get to self-doubt a lot. And this is why I think it is important to stick to your idea, and perseverance at the end of the day, it's the answer to all these failures. That it's not just about whether you win or you lose. It's about I'm here no matter how many highs and lows I will have till I get it. So I think that is the proudest moment, that I'm still surviving after all these times, that sometimes I want some things, but many times I fail in a lot.
That's what builds your character and got you to where you're at today. Well done, you're so impressive. and Eleni, she trains astronauts at NASA alongside. Okay, in closing, I just want to ask if any of you have any advice for one another as leading voices. Chi, should we start with you?
Well, I guess the advice that I'd have for all of you would be the same advice that I'm trying to sort of take myself. Is the fact. Yes. So I think it's sort of, I've come to learn, and it just makes me so happy hearing you guys talk about failure, because it's so true, and I never understood that. I think kind of growing up as an overachiever, I never really understood when people say, like, oh, like, failure leads to success, and I'm just like, wait, what are you talking about? Success leads to success, failure leads to failure. But it's not until you live your life and you realize, like, wow, it's during the times of failure that you actually learn the most, and you realize that, like, you can, and if you get through it, you realize that you can actually overcome anything, you know? And when people say that, oh, you're so confident, you're overly confident, or whatever it is, it's a compliment, because you know within yourself, like, I've earned this confidence. Like, I have earned this confidence, and it's a compliment, because it's not easy to be able to be at the bottom and just get back up and figure it out. And so sorry, what was that, Amy?
No, I was going to say the people that are bringing down, we refer to that in our space. It's called pull her down syndrome.
Exactly. Especially as women. Oh my God, especially as women. I think women were just spectacular, honestly. And I think what we have working against us is that we have a society that's telling us that we actually have to kind of tone down our amazingness because we're going to intimidate other people, which is problematic. And I think Chimamanda obviously said it best, right? That we always kind of we have women that are kind of working at half but they're kind of working at kind of half of their potential, because they kind of always feel a need to kind of tone it down and make everyone feel comfortable. And so I'm always so inspired, but when I meet women that are just kind of like, boom, here I am, and I want to inspire you. I don't want you to feel uncomfortable, but if you feel uncomfortable, that's your problem, not mine. Like, I love that. And that's something that I'm trying to internalize within myself. I always kind of feel a need to kind of make sure that everyone feels okay. But I think it's okay to shine. It's okay, and it's okay to be honest. You know, be very honest about what you're going through, be failures, etc.
That's great advice, I think, for any woman out there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Belle, do you have anything to add to giving advice to any of the other leading voices?
Yeah, I want to say that along with failure, never ever trust that a story can be built overnight. So it's not just about failures, but it's about it takes time. Don't get demotivated just because it's taking time for you and you think that the stories you hear seem to be overnight. They're not overnight stories. Like, people fantasize about something that they know it worked. But when it was actually happening, they're the only ones who know how much they suffered and work hard for it. So if you feel that, great, you're in the right track.
I think a platform like this, us connecting like this, is so critical. So thank you for having this. And for us ladies and for us entrepreneurs, know that there are few people looking at us. So as much as we're going through this hardness and we are fortunate to be in these situations to maneuver through it. But we've got other people looking. We've got our constituencies in our space of other young ladies, other young people who we are examples for, as much as those very successful entrepreneurs are examples for us. So this consciousness of just knowing we're also paving the way, and we've got the responsibility to be our best for ourselves, but also to be one more example for other people, keeps us true to the journey and keeps us true to the lessons that we're learning and having to put out. So I'm always humbled to know that I'm potentially an example for somebody else, and you guys an example for me as well. So that's just beautiful if we can just pay it forward and share our lessons.
Thank you. And Rapelang, by the way, Raelene, I said in the beginning, you're all an inspiration to me as well. I 100% agree with you that this is so necessary. I don't know how it hasn't been done before, and it's completely inspirational. Anyway, Rapelang, do you have anything to add?
Sure. I think my advice to women in particular is that, especially women who are pursuing or wanting to pursue a business idea and things, is that often we're taught that business is about, coming up with an idea and financial modeling and managing people and all of that. But I found that the biggest part of being an entrepreneur is the personal journey, not the business journey. And if you work on your personal growth and self-leadership, that's actually the biggest factor that contributes to how far you can get with your business. So that really requires you to master yourself and actually understand what fundamentally makes you tick, what you really care about, the kinds of things you're happy to pay attention to, your negative drivers, and the things that make you act below your potential and how you tackle some of those things, because that's really what the journey is about. It's not an intellectual exercise at all. And I think too little is said about the life effort of understanding yourself and how critical that is to whatever your life purpose is, whether you're an entrepreneur or anything else. And for women in particular, I think it's very important that they build that awareness, because I think we struggle much more to succeed outside of it. And it's a pretty big thing. And if you think from my perspective, lots of people can come up with similar ideas, and it's really about who you are and how you make it play out into the world. So who you are as an individual is your strongest business competitive advantage. So if you don't understand who you are, you've actually shot yourself in the foot quite badly, and it's actually key to the whole process.
Yeah, you are your biggest resource. I can totally relate to that. Thank you.
Sure.
And lastly, Eleni, do you have anything to add on giving advice to any of the ladies?
I think the best advice was already given. I will just add that, in general, we have to learn how to be versatile, to be extraordinarily disciplined with the management of time and ruthless about where you choose to spend your time and your energy. And also another thing I wanted to say, along with this, how to develop yourself and evolve, is also compassion, especially if you want to build a business. And I'm sure I'm one of the very few people that emphasizes compassion so much, because everybody's trying to force us into thinking as, being more about the business and the economics and the financial side of our startup, so that it can be a lean startup. But in the course of everyone's life, I think perhaps without any plan on his part, you will see suffering that will break your heart, suffering that will, shake you. And I think when this happens, we shouldn't turn away, and we shouldn't just focus on numbers. It is that moment that will change everything, and where change is born. And this is where your motivation will be in your life, and you'll start to find the meaning in your own life as well. And that's what I want to underline for women that are listening to us today, that I'm pretty sure all of us here had some dramatic moment happening, or have experienced around us very difficult situations, and that was something that is motivating us every day to do what we do.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Eleni.
Thank you.
And in closing, I just want to say thank you to all of you. Thank you, Chi. Thank you, Eleni. Thank you, Bao, Raelene, and Rapelang. It's been an absolute honor to speak to all of you, and I hope that this is the first conversation of many to come. I hope the connectivity wasn't too bad. We can only better it for next time. So thank you so much.